Within my classroom, I utilize differentiated instruction to increase engagement and to meet the individual needs of each learner.
The benefits of using differentiated instruction are exponential. I can simultaneously provide intervention and acceleration within my classroom during a differentiated instruction lesson. During this particular lesson, students are using discovery learning and, in turn, producing a product to share with the class. This engages students in becoming experts on the topic and increases a love of learning. I initially place 2 big, understanding statements on the board and discuss them with the class. This helps get students thinking about the vocabulary and concepts that will be involved in the lesson. I then used a pre-assessment that included 3 open-ended questions to evaluate student background knowledge in regard to the subject matter. This information helps me to know if the students truly understood the meaning of a natural hazard or disaster. The pre-assessment also helps me to understand which students have an accelerated level on knowledge pertaining to the subject we are studying and allows for adjustments to be made accordingly throughout the lesson. Another important area I addressed had to do with student vocabulary needs. I designed a matching game for students with vocabulary words on cards and definitions on sentence strips. Students then had to match the definition of the vocabulary word. After completing the match, students then independently wrote a sentence with each word and drew an illustration to demonstrate understanding. As students are working, I am monitoring progress and providing feedback. This allows me to intervene with students quickly if I notice a misconception or misunderstanding. When introducing the new learning, I used the example of a tornado as a natural hazard. I had a bubble map on my classroom board as a model. In the center of the bubble map, I placed the word tornado. There were 5 extending bubbles, each with a designated question about tornadoes. The class took turns answering the questions with newly acquired knowledge in regard to this natural hazard from our discussion. At this point, I introduced the expectation rubric. Students applied the rubric to the 5 questions we answered together. Students will utilize this rubric later when completing their own product. After the new learning had occurred, students created a tri-fold foldable that had the words before, during, and after at the top. Each student then illustrated what their natural environment would look like before, during, and after a tornado based on new learning. I then listed the remaining 4 hazards for students to choose among as a possible research topic. Students wrote their top 2 choices on a note card. I then grouped students according to their interest, and from there they began researching their natural hazard. The expectation during research included students using the following resources: a computer, books, or magazines. Each group filled in a bubble map that pertained to their natural hazard as they collected information. This information was then transferred to a large-scale foldable that student groups presented to the class. After every group has presented their new learning, students had the opportunity to make adjustments with their new learning to the prior pre-assessment. The new learning was noted by students in a different color pen so that I was able to assess learning and future reteaching opportunities. At this point, an exit card was given to students for them to reflect upon the earlier pre-assessment. I asked students to document whether or not they would change their answer to the question regarding what part of the world they would like to live in based on our new learning about natural hazards and disasters. Students had to explain why they stayed with the original decision or changed their mind about where they might want to live. After completing the lesson, I decided upon a natural hazard that students would, as a whole group, build a model of in the classroom.